Hey, welcome back. So, in my last video, I talked about a lot of card selection, why I chose them, and that type of thing. And now I just wanted to make a video where I played some games. But I also kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what I said in the last video. There's a few things that I think maybe were incorrect, or I was close but kind of missed the mark on. And also, there's one change that's happened to the Oloro deck. So what I'm going to do now is just talk about that change real quick. It's real simple. I took out Mental Misstep and I put in Prairie Stream. And the reason I put in Prairie Stream is because the more I thought about it, the more I realized I only have one way to fetch basics, which is attacks. It does it three at a time, but having four of them is okay. But with the Tithe, I have a bunch of fetch lands that will go get blue-white lands, and then the Tide, which will get two. And I want to maximize the number of times that I'm able to get two lands with Tithe, and I also want to make sure that whenever I do cast Tithe, as much as possible, I want to be able to get two islands, if not, if possible, or one, if not. I'd hate tithing for just two non-blue lands, and I've had to do that many times. Which kind of gives me the feeling like, hey, I wanted one more. Also, I was always bugged by the fact that I had an Urborg, but no corresponding white producing land to go with it. I had like one extra black land than white, even though I have an even number of black and white cards. So, although I have an extra mana symbol in the Necropotence, as far as like a three banger goes, and I only have a couple of two bangers here. If you actually add up the mana symbols, the number of white mana symbols, and you add up the number of black ones, um, it's actually the exact same. There's three here, but there's two here and two here. So I literally have the same number of cards, same number of mana symbols. So having that one extra white with the one extra black land just feels more balanced to me. I don't know, maybe that's just a thing for me. But of note, the funny thing is though, when you're playing Urborg, these dual lands that produce blue and white become tri-lands, while dual land like the blue-black one doesn't get any better. So the playing Urborg actually makes Prairie Stream a better card, slightly. Like it has more potential to do more things for me. So it actually they're kind of like a team, I think. So hopefully Prairie Stream will stay in the deck. Let's go check out the games. Oh, there's my son. Let's go check out the games, and then what we'll do is I'll show you a Silver Queen 5-color control deck. It tries to use the stuff I talked about in the last video. But I'll do that after the fact, so you can watch a game, and because these games are really cool. And then if you want to stick around and hear about that other stuff, then go for it. So I haven't tested these games. I don't know if they're going to bug out or what. I'm really hoping that they don't. Um, I think in these games I actually was. Oh, there's telling me again. I think in these games I was actually testing Mox Diamond in the deck, and I had taken out Treasure Cruise. And the logic is a little convoluted for that, but the bottom line is that I think after testing it, I decided that I was happier with having Treasure Cruise and not Mox Diamond. So if you see Mox Diamond in here, realize that this game um, it should have been Treasure Cruise, and I would have been better off. So I'm going to start with this. This is the this was I think a good game, but I have two games I want to show you, and the next one, if it doesn't bug, is really cool. So I won the dice roll here, and I'm playing against. Like, this is actually a really clever thing this person did. I think. I'm playing against General Tazri, and General Tazri, because he has a 5 mana activation cost, he actually lets you play 5 colors of cards. So he's a 5-color general. Now, I don't think he's a better general than Silver Queen, but if you're into playing allies, then he is, and you get to use all 5 colors, and that's kind of a cool thing. So anyway, excuse me. So anyway, right here you can see how little having the Prairie Stream actually, what a little drawback it is. Now I have a pretty mana fat hand and I went first, so I really thought about strip mining the guy, but I don't know. I decided that I was going to fetch for mystical teachings and just have the mana twist, and my twist, and I was just thinking I'd rather try to put the game away fast than slow him down and draw it out, drag it out. So he did me a solid. Sorry. He played Priest of Titania, which I had the Metamorph, and I was planning to hold Metamorph to Force a Will with. So this kind of only gives me teachings to force with, which kind of sucks. But at the same time, it supercharges my draw, because while copying his priest puts an extra elf on the battlefield for him to get extra mana, I already know because of his general that this opponent is less of a threat to me than I am to him. So for him to get extra mana and for me to get the same amount is almost always going to result in a better deal for me than it will for him. That's the assumption anyway. So he plays Tazri Warcaller, which is just a damage dealing ally, and this kind of proves my point here. But it also does me another favor because it's an elf, and I'm about to take a turn with a Priest of Titania. And then the top matter's off. I drew a copy artifact that I can move to Force of Will. So I start to float the mana for twist. I decide I'm going to strip mine his island first. In case he has days, now he can't play it. I'm not expecting days from this guy, but I mean, I might as well. I was going to kill it anyway, so I might as well just get it out of the way. And then Mind Twist for 5 because he's already played 2 cards. Takes his whole hand. And boom. Instant death. So that was kind of cool, but mainly the thing about that game that was neat was that I like to copy the priest, how that actually interaction that it had with the game. And I thought it was cool that Parry Stream is useful right off the bat. So now let's take a look at this game against 3 drinks. And as you can see, I mean, I've had a good day today, but nothing like notable except in this game. This game was completely awesome. I thought it was awesome. I don't know. I leave it to you ultimately to decide. So you'll have to rewind the video if you want to see why I mulliganed. Unfortunately, it went by too quickly. His commander is Grana, Liberator of Malakir. So flying first strike gets bigger. Okay, doesn't seem like a threat to me, but I just have to keep it in mind. So I have a great hand. Like I'm going to be able to turbo Necropotence down onto the table, and I draw Imperial Seal, which just makes it even better. Because I was trying to figure out, like, normally I want to Enlighten Tutor for Mox, or, for Mana Crypt or Soul Ring, but, I mean, I couldn't go get Mana Crypt or Soul Ring very effectively in this situation, because I was trying to get 3 mana for Necro, so I was thinking, like, okay, well, what do I go get? Do I have to go get Tithe or whatever? But when I draw the Imperial Seal, that changes everything. So I seal for the Soul Ring, and then I go ahead and just preordain. It's actually hitting a land, which is fantastic. I had been planning to Enlighten Tutor for Crucible, not Crucible, Coalition Relic, and then get Relic down and then charge it up and then use that to play Necro. But when I hit a land off the preordain, I get an even better play. I think it's better. I have a Necro, so cards don't have the value that they normally do. In my hand, cards have value when they're in play, so I just go ahead and Enlighten Tutor to get more cards into play. So I get a Talisman down, and then boom, Necro, and then I'm going to draw 6 cards. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, no, let me take a 7th. That way, I can just throw away the worst one. I kind of like to open Necro by 1. Alright, well, this looks correct, so it doesn't seem like we'll be bugging. So, Expedition map. I'm so sorry. Expedition map is, it's slow, and I'm trying to use Necro. I'm trying to develop as quickly as I can and not futz around with searching for lands. And going to get I mean, I could have pitched the Mire and kept the map, and then got Workshop in order to get the Power Stone down, but it would cost me 3 mana to get the Workshop to play the Power Stone. Or I could just play a land, go up a land, and then use the 3 mana I would have had to spend anyway, and get the Power Stone regardless. Plus, with Crucible in my hand, having a sack land that I can start using from the graveyard is a really good thing, because then I won't have to keep, my Necro hands won't have to keep lands at all, at least until I run out targets. So even though I could set up Crucible Strip, the guy's mono black. It doesn't seem that good. So he's gonna get to draw extra cards off Pains here. So I'm bringing up like what he'll be drawing over here. Pains here reveals Wretched Android. So he's just playing like all in black. What? He plays Unu's Blackguard, and this is kind of relevant. So each other rogue has a +1/+1. No big deal. Whenever a creature you control with a counter on it deals damage, that player discards a card. That's a big deal because whenever this thing hits me, put a +1 counter on attackers, and this thing has first strike, which means this hits me, gets a counter. This thing gets a counter, then it hits me, and then I've got to discard. Oh, and then next turn, he sends the whole team, hits me, they each get a counter, and then I have to discard, multiple times. It's like reverse Edric. Instead of filling my hand, it's dumping my hand. Still, a Necropotence can keep up, but let's not forget that it's adding counters which will increase damage, and my life total. I mean, Oloro is not going to be able to keep up with that for very long. So anyway, I take my first strike damage, then I take my 3. Now I have to discard. This one, again, I'm planning to reuse the Mire. Even with this damage going on, it still makes sense. Tithe, on the other hand, it's just a bit slow. I don't want to spend, I don't want to spend a mana to get a mana for the same reason that I didn't want to use a map to get there. So I go ahead and, so I only have one other land that I can fetch with it, but like I said, I'm guaranteed to hit a land drop next turn, and I think that's worthwhile, given that I have Rift. So I play Power Stone and Crucible. I don't over Necro anymore, realizing how precarious my life actually is, my life total here. And I figure, okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a bunch of damage, and then I was looking to see if I could take enough damage, like twice, and then I could Rift at the end of his turn, and then twist him away. But it's crazy how much this adds up and how quickly it adds up. More importantly, it's crazy how much damage this thing does when you get when you have 5 swamps in play and you put it on your commander. Look at that! Holy smokes, that's a freaking boatload of damage. This is like I have to discard a card here and here and here, 3 cards, and then each point of life is a card from my point of view with Necro. So this is almost like he's making me discard like 20 cards this turn or something stupid. So I end up discarding, well, you'll see. I have Necros, so I figure I don't need to keep Ponder and Impulse. But I really want to protect Sensei's Divining Top if I can. So I end up deciding to do this, and I need Rebuttal to protect myself. And the reason I wanted to protect top is that I have that Fetch Land Crucible thing going, so that for 1 life I get to see 3 cards as opposed to 1 life getting me to see 1 card with Necro, and it probably will work out. Plus, I was hoping to just luck stack into the Terminus, and I need a way to pocket Necro to put it in my hand, which won't work. So I just fetch right away. I think that was, I don't know if that was right. I'm not sure if I should have played top there first, but I wasn't going to use it this turn, so that was probably fine. I realized I had to Rift or I'm dead meat, so I might as well just Rift now before he gets the extra card from Pains here. And then I Necro all the way down to all he needs is a Drain Life for 1 to kill me, because if I try to, well, he needs 2 cards to kill me, but the problem is, he's got a bunch of creatures in his hand that don't cost a lot of mana, so the cards I'm getting off of Necro better be pretty doggone good, because I'm going to need like multiple blockers, a sweeper, I'm going to need something. Because the whole end of turn Rift you and then Mind Twist you plan, that's gone. I'm taking way too much damage. But I get this. I mean, it's always nice to see a counter spell, but not when I'm tapped out. So I have to hope that, and then he hits me with Bog and takes away my my fetch land. But the funny thing is, you and I know that I actually fetched the only 2 targets in the deck out, and I drew another one, so it's actually not too bad for me. Anyway, I'm hoping he just plays like his equipment or something goofy like that, and then I get to win the game. But this guy's not falling for that, so he goes falling into that trap. You saw for a second he may have considered a 4-drop there, and then realized 2 blue and a Necro means he should be playing 2 threats and try to bait a counter. So he plays Grana, and as far as I can tell, my thinking is this: if he plays a flyer, I have to counter it. If he plays a ground creature like that Anurid Brushhopper we saw earlier, I have the ability to play my commander and block, so I have to counter his commander here, even though it sucks because he's just going to be able to replay it later. But it keeps a flyer off the table. And if he just does, yeah, and he does he does play the Brushhopper because it's bigger, which is what I was hoping for, and not the flyer. So, I gained 2 life off Oloro. We are living on Oloro, on the good graces of Oloro right now. And I work out like how much mana I can afford to spend this turn and decide that it's going to be okay to brainstorm. I'd put back a tap land underneath the fetch land because I'm really actually, I mean, every point of life is so precious that it may not be worth fetching here. So I go ahead and copy my Soul Ring because I mean it's pretty clear that I'm going to really need as much mana as I can get over the next couple of turns. But on this specific turn, I'm planning to hit him with a big twist. Now this thing's a 3/3, so I have to kill it now, and luckily I have the Vindicate to do it off of the brainstorm, because if he well I don't have enough mana to twist him for 7, but I can twist him for 6, and that's going to have to be good enough. And look what I get. Oh, man. I get the Lash, which is cool, and Edict, which I would have had to counter the Edict, and then I would have died to him playing Necro. I mean, there's no coming back from that. I would have died to Desolation, eventually. I could have died to the Flyer, the Lash, Demonic Tutor for whatever to kill me, like make me draw 2 cards and take 2 damage. And then Demonic Tutor and freaking Necropotence. I mean, his hand was so good. And 6 of it's gone. And we know what the last card is. We know the last card's Painseer, who doesn't have flying. So Mind Twist saves the day again. Or at least it gets me in the game. Back in the game. Because I'm not sure that I am in the game, actually. So I have to vindicate his guy. But look, I mean, look at the situation here. He's got enough mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If he hits another land, I'm pretty sure this thing only has... I can't remember for sure, but this guy either costs 5 or 7. If he costs 7, 1 land, you can play it. I can't block it. And we know that my top cards are crap. But I took 1 off City of Brass, so I can only take 1 off the top of my deck. It's luckily the fetch, but I'm not going to be able to fetch anything now. Not that I could. I've already made a land anyway. No, I was wrong. It's 5, so down comes this guy, and I mean, I can't block that. So what do? Luckily, I kept myself atop because I'm not getting the draw phase. So I go ahead and take a peek, and there's a Factor Fiction. So I figure, okay, well, let's Hail Mary the Factor Fiction, and I had to make a decision. Did I want to fetch and shuffle the top away? Because I know that some of the cards on top, 3 of them, in fact, all 3 of them are useless to me. In fact, is only going to dig me a little way down. So do I want a fresh 5 randomly, or do I want to fact into top and then try to top my way into something with whatever mana is left over? And I decide, because I had copied the Soul Ring and I seem to have enough mana to do all that this turn, that I'm going to go that route. So I fact into this. And remember what I said? Mox Diamond is supposed to be, and currently is, again, Treasure Cruise. How huge this would have been if this was Treasure Cruise, and I could have spent 1 blue to draw 3 as opposed to peek at 3 with the top. But it's not, alas. Currently in this game, it is a very unhappy Mox Diamond. He sets up piles like this, which is reasonable. He could have put the Hallowed Fountain in this pile, and it would have made no difference. I think he realized that because of the Crucible. He just does this, and I've got to take the top. I need to find a way to not die. Now he can't hit me once, and then I can block. So there is that. But I go to actually cast my commander, thinking that that's what I'm gonna let happen, and then I realize, I've still got enough mana. Let's see what the next three yield, and it yields Metamorph. A Metamorph. So unless his top card was removal or his next card is removal, I might actually have a blocker. Of course, I pay full mana for the Metamorph here, which you usually don't do. You usually pay 3. But 2 life, too critical. So I play the tap Hallowed Fountain. I've got enough mana to counterspell. I'm at 3, and the City of Brass will take me to 2, which means I get 1 card off the Necropotence. And that 1 card is the top that I put there. I need the top back in my hand for next turn, so I basically just boomerang it back to my hand for a life, which kind of sucks, but it's still kind of cool that you can do that. Luckily, he has what appears to be no tricks, and he attacks and I block, and then he plays the Pain Seer that we knew about, and has nothing else. So we're okay with the Pain Seer because we can block that with our commander, and he won't live. He won't get to untap. So I get no draw phase yet again. Play a top and take a peek and see nothing. So I shuffle, and hey, there's that Prairie Stream, the last planes in my deck, coming in handy a little bit. So I'm trying to figure out, can I top first? And I realize I have enough mana to do that, so I top again. It's nothing too great there, but I do have a mana leak, so I'll go ahead and put that on the top. And I can activate my top in response to some kind of a big play, and hopefully mana leak it. But I decide that the chances, in this black weenie deck, the chances of a big play happening like that are slim. And this was probably wrong. I should not have played the Coalition Relic, but it's what I did. I should have sat so I could cast both Counterspell and a Mana. But like I said, I played the Relic, so I go ahead and Necro for max cards because I want to be able to peek at 3 new cards at the top, and I just want to get those out of the way. In my turn, my opponent has Go for the Throat, and I'm like, oh crap. I should not have played that freaking artifact, because now my pants are down. I have no answer. If he's got the kill, I'm dead. And he's tapping up for mana, and he's got Grafted War Gear. Well, this doesn't actually kill me, but, he puts it on his commander. I got a chump block, and then I probably die. Although I do get to draw an extra card with Oloro, and then I get to, top, and if I don't like the cards, I can Necro them away and top again. But he doesn't put it on his commander. He puts it on the Pain Seer. And I'm like, wait, is that right? A 5/4? That's gonna trade, but it's not. It's actually gonna trade. It's not gonna punch through. Like it's not gonna. There's no trample or anything. I'm okay with that. I guess and I understand what his thinking was. His thinking most likely was keep me off of getting an extra card when I'm so choked for cards already. So, I go ahead and top, and there's a Cryptic Command, which is pretty nice. So I go ahead and play Prairie, Windswept, because why not? Recast my commander, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. This time, I decide not to be stupid and put the Diamond Signet in play. I'd like to be able to play both of my counter spells in the same turn if I need to, or if he had, I don't know what he's going to draw, but he should be only drawing 1 card, and I shouldn't need to do that. But if you see what my play is here, I may need both the Cryptic and the Mana. So he draws. To make matters worse, though, he gets a Knight's Whisper. So because of the play that I have to make, that I feel I have to make anyway, I have to let. I had an option here to counter that and bounce his commander and then mana leak it on the way down, and I gave that strong consideration. But I decided to let it go because I felt like if I could just, I knew my next cards weren't that good, and I just wanted to keep digging. So I wanted to make him have to pay like a higher commander tax this way. So I bounced Grafted War Gear, and my opponent actually gives up. He says he drew all bricks. So I was thinking I would bounce the Grafted Warrior and he would replay it, and that would give me a QB exactly 1 mana too short. And I could mana leak that thing, because I really don't want him to have Grafted Warrior, even though I was able to use it there to kill his commander. But yeah, he gave up. And when I took a look at my next few cards, just to see what I would have snagged, like at that point his commander's gone. He could play like 2 more creatures or whatever, but I'm probably going to be able to block him. Anyway, when I looked to see what my next few cards were, I would have drawn 1 off of Oloro, and then I would have got to peek for 3, and then I would have been able to set aside up to 2 of them, and then peek for 3 more, well, for 2 deeper than that. So I could have gone 6 cards down. So look at the next 6 cards, and somewhere in there was a Future Sight. And then we would have gone Future Sight top, and off to the races. So he scooped, funny enough, when he still actually had a chance to win the game, like even if his hand is bad, because I'm not in that great of a position, but he was right to scoop, because as it turns out, the next turn was I was going to go crazy with Future Top, with Top Sight. So anyway, I thought that was a pretty neat game, because it's one of the only games you'll see. I mean, if you've been on the channel for a while, you know there's maybe 1 to 3 games total, counting that one, where the life game from Oloro actually matters for any reason other than to trigger Well of Lost Dreams. But it absolutely mattered there, and I thought that was pretty neat, that I was able to keep myself like barely alive just with the power of 2 cards per turn and a top, and sitting on basically 1 life constantly. So I did mention at the beginning of the video that I wanted to talk a little bit about some changes. Well, not changes, but some things I realized after my last one. In my last video, I was talking about cards that I thought might be mandatory in their colors, in their respective colors. And then what I decided to do after I made that video was try to put together a deck. Try to put together a deck to see which cards I actually used in the deck to the best of my ability, and see which cards I would use in the deck that actually fell into line with what I thought was mandatory, and which ones I missed, and that kind of thing. As it turns out, I thought Lightning Bolt would be a kind of a mandatory card, but in hindsight, I can see why that's not the case. Lightning Bolt is a top tier card in its colors, but it's not really a mandatory play card. Like, you're not gonna, if my deck doesn't have Lightning Bolt, you can't look at my deck and say, oh, that deck is, you're missing Lightning Bolt. That deck's just not as good as it could be. That's just plainly not true. Like, having Keranos, which is a reusable Lightning Bolt on a stick, having a little bit of extra removal with fire and ice and stuff is fine. I mean, there's no way to say, like, you know, if you could somehow add Lightning Bolt to the Oloro deck, it really doesn't get that much better. So I was wrong about Bolt. There's a couple other cards I think I was wrong about, or that I might have been right about, but only within context, like the alternate 1 mana green instant that kills artifacts and enchantments that cost 3 or less mana. Yeah, it's a it's a pretty powerful card, but it's a context thing. If you need that effect beyond the Nature's Claim, that I do think is a mandatory play in green, like, I think your deck is just going to be better if you play. By mandatory, I mean your deck will literally be better, like, every time if you put Nature's Claim in it, if you're playing green. So anyway, that other card, though, it's context-based, because if you have enough artifact and enchantment removal, then you don't necessarily need that conditional card, especially like in this version here where I've got Claim and Blast and Grudge already, plus I have Dak Fading and Steel, plus I have, of course, Vindicate, plus I have Rift. I mean, this deck's overloaded on that kind of thing. It just doesn't need them. So, you know, I was wrong about that. Aura Shards is a card that I couldn't think of a green-white card that felt like a must include. But if you're playing green-white creature-based, like green-white X or just green-white, and your deck is creature-based deck, then Aura Shard seems like a must include. Like, your deck is just clearly a better deck if you have Aura Shards in it, I think. Um, because then every single creature you play is a Reclamation Sage. Every single one suddenly becomes a Rec Sage when Aura Shards is in play, including tokens, like if you're, like Silver Queen tokens or whatever. But in a deck that's not, I wouldn't call Aura Shards a must-play card unless it's a green and white creature-based deck. So again, context is everything. So this deck, if you're curious, is basically the Oloro deck, but it just subs out some cards because, first of all, you can't use Well of Lost. You're not going to effectively use Well of Lost Dreams. But we get to lose the Well of Lost Dreams, and we get to pick up Keranos. For one more mana, we get extra cards we don't have to pay mana every turn for, and we get Lightning Bolts on a stick for Planeswalkers and players and creatures, and that's pretty cool. I think that's a pretty reasonable swap that I don't feel bad about. We lose the 3-mana Dark Confidant effect, but we pick up Dak Faden, who I think is just flat out superior to that effect most of the time. So definitely no heartburn about that. We lose Necropotence, which sucks. I said I thought Necro was BBB win the game, but I think I've been spoiled by Oloro so much. Like, you take a look at the last game I played, if I wasn't playing Oloro, then I was dead that game. And I realized that in a deck like this, where you don't have that capability, what you want is the green one. You want the green Necropotence. It's a higher price for cards, but you can turn it off when you want to. So we lose Necro, but we gain Sylvan Library. It's also much easier to play, and in a 5-color deck, I think that's relevant. And it lets us improve our mana base by dropping Urborg and putting in a dual land to support the other colors. We lose. What else did we lose? We lost Cruise and Dig, which Cruise can get us 3 cards for 1, and and Dig gets us 2 for 1. But we picked up Ancient Grudge, which gets us 2 for 1, very cheap and early in the game. And we picked up Vandal Blast, which will get us frequently a lot more than 3 for 1. A lot of times Vandal Blast will just end the game. But when it doesn't, it's super disruptive for only 1 red. What a great card. So I think that's a pretty fair exchange. We lost Thirst for Knowledge. But we got a card that also cycles. We get Ice, and it's got a fire attached to it. And we actually went down on Artifact mana because we lost the Signets and Talismans. But we picked up Felwar Stone, which, as I said, I think in the video, in a 5-color deck, I think Felwar Stone is a must play because it has the potential to make any color that you need. It won't always make all 5, but the fact is, whatever color it makes, it's a useful color to you. And then we also picked up Mox Diamond and Mox Opal. We grabbed these cards for the same reason we got Felwar Stones. We want 5 colors. We want mana fixing. So we are only down 1 artifact, but we are down an artifact, and so plus we're down the Well, which is a 2nd artifact. So that's why I took Thirst out. And what I replaced Thirst with is I use that for the regrowth slot. So we don't get a Thirst for Knowledge and pick up 3 random cards, but we get to regrowth and pick up 1 target card, and I think that's a pretty good deal. I took out Seal and Disenchant. At this point, there's already a ton of removal with the Faden and the Grudge and the Vandal Blast. But by taking those 2 out and replacing them both with a single Nature's Claim, I opened up a slot which allowed me to put in an extra land. And I needed to do that because the white-black comes into play, tap lands, becomes Plateau. And then with the extra land slot, I am able to add Savannah. So now I've got 2, I can tithe for any color. I can tithe for 2 planes and get both red and green, white and black, or black and blue rather, or whatever combination of the 5 colors that I want to get, as long as they're all planes. And so I think that's definitely worth it. And then the other thing I did with the mana base is, since we dropped Necro, I kicked out the Urborg, and I took out Cephalid Coliseum, since we don't have, again, the life game of Oloro might as well. And I improved, instead of drawing, Coliseum would be nice in here still, it's the damage isn't that much. But we have, with Dak Faden potentially, like, churning through our deck a little faster, and Sylvan Library doing what it does and everything, it's not a big deal if we lose a Coliseum. it was better for us to pick up Tropical Island and Volcanic Island as tutorable targets. Um, and then I also put in a Wooded Foothills, and I don't remember what I swapped out to make the cut. So it probably wasn't a big deal. Oh, well, I guess it would have been I guess it would have been whatever. What was the mental misstep? Or no, it's not mental misstep. Oh, the prairie. Yeah, the prairie land. So I took out the prairie land and I put in another fetch land in here. Instead of using that land, because we already have like the plateau and the savanna, so we actually have more plains in this deck than we have in the Oloro deck, which is kind of funny because the Oloro deck is like more based on white, I guess. So anyway, we took out because it has humility in it, but yeah, so that prairie land became an extra Wooded Foothills, and Wooded Foothills with Volcanic and Tropical and these other cards is just another card that, you know, gets anything you want and fixes your color base. That gives us the full suite of lands. I did not have room for Crows and Verge, but if it turns out that, oh, and the other thing is, I also went up to 30 lands because, you know, with Mox Diamond in the deck, you just need more lands to hit. But it turns out with this deck, the way that it is, you're still not hitting enough for Mox Diamond or Opal. If it doesn't feel satisfactory, then I think the card to consider adding might be, you could add Frozen Verge into the deck and do that, but I think it's probably not correct to make that change. I decided, again, I don't like coming to play tap lands. I didn't mind removing the Prairie for this deck anyway. Putting another one back in, just for a card that fights with land tax, it's just not that important. So that's how the deck, if somebody out there, that's how the deck's constructed, and if somebody out there actually has the cards to finish the deck off, I'd love to see someone give it a spin and let me know, you know, how it works for them. I think basically the only problem, I think it would be a fantastic deck and super fun to play. The only problem with it is that it might be more fair than it should be. Oloro's a little more broken, just because Necro's a little more broken than Sylvan Library, but they're pretty close. So, and boy, Dak Faden and Vandal Blast, that's some good stuff right there. So I don't know. It's definitely be interesting to find out how they do. And if you guys get a chance to play it, I'm looking forward to hearing about it. So anyway, that's all I've got. It'll probably be a long time before I finish this deck, if ever. I just don't have the money to do it because we're still talking a couple $100. Yeah, not gonna happen for a while. But if I ever do, I promise I'll make some videos and you can check out what the old Silver Queen deck, which is the deck that started this channel, what it would look like in action with modern, with not modern, but current, with the current card pool, or whatever the current card pool is at the time. Maybe there'll be even better cards for me to use by the time I get the money to finish it. So, given that it's so close to Oloro as a deck, this actually should be pretty easy to finish. I mean, it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards away from being a Oloro. It's actually more cards different, but 8 cards that I don't have. So it would be really cool to have another deck to play, just for the variety. Plus, I love Sylvan Library. I love casting Regrowth. I don't know, and I've been very excited about Dak Faden. But out of all those things, I think there's nothing more satisfying than Vandal blasting your opponent back to the Stone Age. So, pretty cool stuff. Well, I suppose there's one other thing. There's something very nice about going first turn, kill your Soul Ring, and they go swoop. Awesome. So, yeah, that's all I have, and I hope you enjoyed the games. I hope you like my reel back on a few cards that I talked about in the last video, and that you are interested in what the outcome of this build experiment was. But until I get to play it, we'll have to stick with this. So, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.